Hey everybody, welcome to Nerds Talk. I'm Mike,
And I'm Chris.
and we are back into Star Wars. That's right, the Bad Batch has finally come. We're going to be reviewing the full series for you guys, episode by episode. But for those of you who are new to the channel, do not worry, we're not jumping into spoilers yet. We're going to go and kind of give you an overview of what we thought about the episode and kind of where we're at with the series so far, and then jump into the spoiler-filled section. So with that being said, Chris, we're doing 2 episodes actually this time. We're doing
Yes.
episode 1, Aftermath, and episode 2, Cut and Run. So
Yeah.
let's start off with Aftermath. What did you think of the opening of the Bad Batch?
Oh man, I loved it. Without getting into too much, I guess they incorporated a lot of different genres and other animated episodes and series and so on. So there's a lot of connections. The Bad Batch was cool. I wasn't sure about them when their first arc was there at the last season of Clone Wars. But the more I watched them in that arc, the more I enjoyed them, and I was happy to hear that they were doing their own show. So loved that it was 70 minutes for the first episode. It didn't feel like 70 minutes at all. I just felt like I wanted more. I was disappointed when it ended. So really, really love how they did the first episode.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Great opening start. I liked how they tried to tie everything as neatly as possible to the end of the Clone Wars. As we know, the finale of the Clone Wars, without any spoilers, it kind of takes place during Episode 3. As we know, in the movie Episode 3, the Clone Wars physically end. We kind of get to see a little bit of what happens after that really briefly towards the end of the movie. And so this basically is taking place again during that the final episode or 2 of the Clone Wars final season. And this kind of starts during that same time period. So it's all overlapping, which is pretty cool. And you can kind of see what's happening with the Bad Batch as we saw them exit on, I guess, their own different mission last we saw them. So we kind of get to see where they've gone from there. Great, awesome opening. Very intriguing. Love the connections, love the callbacks, love the surprises, and then of course ending the episode with like, "Oh, I want to watch more." Star Wars always, well, for the most part, does that. So it's really, really great. So I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, and then I guess we'll do Cut and Run. Again, spoiler free. What did you think of the second episode of the show?
Yeah. Still some callbacks, which was nice. Wasn't as action packed as the first one, which is fine. It gives a little bit more of the story of some of the characters and so on, and how they're building a relationship. So still enjoyed it. Obviously not as much as the first one, but the first one was just, right off the hop, full board. So it can't be the whole series that way. So still enjoyed this episode quite a bit. And man, it just, it wasn't anything super special, but still good.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was good. I like that they are definitely trying to set up some character development as well as kind of, again, ease us into, what's setting up episode 4, right? Like we're going to see more and more as the show goes on transition from episode 3 to episode 4, since this takes place literally right at the end of episode 3 and before obviously episode 4. So we kind of get to see a little bit of the transition as well as some nice, I guess, callbacks, and we kind of get to see the dynamics between the team themselves and how they interact with other characters. So I thought it's a great episode. Hopefully we don't have like a lot of these types of episodes. 1 or 2 is fine if it serves its purpose. And I think, we'll discuss what that purpose was. But I'm hoping that as we go forward, we're going to get a lot more into the mystery of the changes and, how are they going to cope with it and what their plan is going to be kind of as they go forward. So, really well done. Again, end of the episode with me wanting to be like, okay, I'm excited to see what's the next step. Where are we going from here? So,
yeah, definitely.
All right, so that's it. That's our spoiler-free section. We're going to dive into the spoiler-filled part of Aftermath at this point. So if you haven't seen the first or second episode, I'd suggest you stop the video and come back after you've watched it. And with that, let's jump right in. So Aftermath, amazing start. Start. Clone Wars is happening, or I guess ending. I love how they started the intro the same as the Clone Wars episode.
With the red. Which was at the the last few episodes of the Clone Wars final season was red, and then it burns up into the Bad Batch logo, and and wording is just, it was so good. And then
Yeah,
the narrator
yeah. The
from
narrator
the
was
Clone
just
Wars, I love that.
yes.
That's
It's like,
so
oh, and
good.
now we're on the next planet of blah blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is Clone Wars. And then nope. And
Yeah,
then the next episode doesn't have that. It's just to kick you in because again, this is showing you this is
the
during Clone Wars,
transition.
and then there's
Yeah,
a transition. And the part we're at is they kind of give moments of where we're at in the timeline. The Clone Wars is nearly at its end. We see ourselves on a planet. I can't remember what the planet is called. Kalar? Does that sound right? Yeah, planet Kalar,
yeah, I think so.
and so we see some clones fighting some remnant separatist troops,
Yeah,
and we see basically Clone Sergeant, the green clone there, with Dippa Balaba, I believe her name is, but basically a Jedi Master who, for some of you who are really, really keen, she's familiar because she was mentioned as a former master of someone in another Star Wars show, and so we'll get to that in a second.
yeah,
But we see the clones fighting, and it looks like they're waiting for reinforcements. They're kind of pinned down, and they're waiting for the reinforcements to arrive. And they made a comment about, her Padawan's supposed to be bringing them, and they'll be here soon. And so then we see this Padawan come flying over and start talking, and I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that voice.
yes.
And it's like, what is that? What is it? Wait, who is that? And then she says his name, specifically Caleb. And I was
Caleb.
like,
Yeah,
Caleb, who is that? And then as he's talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, it just clicked in who this was. So
Caleb Dune.
Caleb Doom, which is basically Kanan Juris. Kanan,
That's right.
he's
From Rebels.
Rebels, exactly. So this Freddie
Yeah.
Prinze Jr. came back to reprise his role, trying
Yes,
to do like
he did the voice.
a younger version of himself, trying to high pitch his voice up so he sounds like a kid. But it's him through and through, and we get to see because he mentioned that his master Deepa Balaba was killed in the Clone Wars. Their troops turned on her, and so
They turned on it. Yeah,
thinking about that, we get to see that take place as he arrives, and she's like, "Oh, where are the reinforcements?" And then the Bad Batch show up and just dismantle the Separatists. And she's like, "Where are the rest of the troops?" And so Hunter says, "Oh, they were rerouted to the capital." And then Wrecker's like, "But we're all you need. Like, this is all you need. We're good to go. We're
because even the commander's like, "Oh, that's Troop 99."
That's right.
So they recognize, right? People know about them.
Yeah, and then Caleb introduces them. It's like, this is Wrecker, this is Hunter, this is Tech. He knows them all. I guess they're friends, whatever. So I'm like, that's pretty cool how he knew them. And so they're like, so she normally calls the shots, being the general. And so Bad Batch is like, okay, we're going to go off and do this. Like, we'll do what we do. And so one of the clone sergeants says, hold it. She gives the commands here and says, what's your command, general? And she pretty much agrees.
Yeah, she's like, well, they're right. Yeah.
He's like, what do you think, Padawan? Should we let them, do the thing? And she's like, yeah, as long as I get to go with them. And she says, okay. So he runs off with them on this mission. And of course, Wrecker's all excited. He loves Caleb.
Yeah.
So they run off. And then during this moment, she stops to, like, I guess, feel through the Force. And then behind her, a clone turns on his comm. And we hear, actually, before this happens, Echo and Tech are having a conversation, and they mention that, just got word that General Kenobi is intercepting Grievous now in Utapau.
Yeah, the war might be done soon.
Yeah, if he takes them over, the Separatist droids are going to be over. So we're like, okay, so they're right now where Kenobi's fighting. And if you think back to the Clone Wars, we know that that happens when Ahsoka and after he gives the sabers to Ahsoka and then takes off on a mission, he's basically heading off supposed to meet with the Emperor, with a Jedi to arrest
spy on them and stuff. From the Jedi Council has them to spy on them.
That's right. So we get to see all that happen, and as he runs off with the Bad Batch, we hear execute Order 66, and so
I think it's Commander Gree. I may be wrong, but I think it's Commander Gree that is under the Jedi.
Okay, and so they're there, and so so she turns around, and the guy draws his gun, and so she deflects the bullets, and then a bunch of the other clone troopers kind of get up and start attacking her, and so Caleb stops and turns around and sees what's happening, so he runs after his master. He's like, "Master, I'm coming," and then runs out with his lightsaber, and then as she's like getting overwhelmed, she's like, "No, run, like you have to get out of here," kind of thing, and then she basically gets overwhelmed, she drops her lightsaber, and then you hear her scream, and so Caleb takes off running. And so he runs towards the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch, of course, are all like, what's going on? And so when he sees them, he stops. He's like, go, get away from me. And so he runs off into the woods, and Hunter's like, oh, don't, kid, like, no, where are you going? Like, wait for us. And so...
but they watched, like, the troopers turn on the
confused,
Jedi, and they're like, what is going on?
Yeah, and so Tech says something about, like, oh, there's some sort of chatter going on, some code order 66 or something. Yeah, and none of them know what it is. And Wrecker even says, like, yeah, I heard that too, I don't know what that means. And so Hunter's like, okay, me and Crosshair will go get the kid. Wrecker, you stop anyone from finding us, and Tech and Echo, whatever, like, you
go talk to the commander, find out the troops, and find out. Sorry, I'm going to correct myself quickly before we get a bunch of comments. Gree was with Yoda, so that's not Gree. So now that I'm remembering, I'm pretty sure he was with Yoda, so not that.
No worries. So they so he runs off into the woods. So Hunter and Crosshair take off after them, and so so as they're heading down, they're looking for him, and some other clones, I guess, approach the Bad Batch at one point, right? They approach Wrecker.
Yeah, and before that, they find out that he's in a tree.
That's right. So this is where it kind of cuts back and forth. So Crosshair and Hunter, they're in the woods looking for him, and then they're like, can't find him. And then Crosshair pulls up a sniper and says, there he is, and pulls the trigger and shoots at him. And
I think Hunter's he whispers, all good soldiers follow orders or something like that.
That's right.
And then shot at him.
And so Hunter's like, what are you doing? And then he looks again and shoots, and then he falls out of the tree, right?
That's right, yeah.
And so Hunter's like not understanding. He's like, don't worry, we're on your side, whatever. And so Crosshair's shooting at him, and so he's getting mad. And so, of course, he doesn't trust them. So he takes off running. And so Crosshair's like, what are you doing? Like, what's the matter with you, kind of thing. And I don't think he addresses it yet. Or Crosshair doesn't say anything yet. He doesn't say anything about,
I think he gets knocked out by...
by
Kanan.
Yeah, he cuts the gun and knocks him back, whatever, and then takes off.
To the tree, knocks him out.
Yeah, and then Hunter basically takes up after him. He's like, I'm on your side. So takes up after him. And then...
he even throws his gun away, saying, I'm on your side, kid. Like
he's backed up against, like, this waterfall, essentially. And so he has a saber out. He's like, don't come any closer. And he's like, listen, kid, I don't know what's going on. He says, you killed him, killed my master. He says, well, they did. I don't know what's happening. Like, I'm like you. Like, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And so Caleb doesn't know who to trust. And so he sees, like, he's not... He threw out his gun. He's approaching him slowly, and so Caleb turns and just force leaps across the ravine, and makes it to the other side and runs off. And so Hunter's kind of like see him go, and then Hunter appears. I guess Hunter gets back
Crosshair.
up. Crosshair. Comes back and he's there, and he's like, where is he?
Where the kid go? Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh, he fell down, whatever, to his death. He's like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, like. It's done. And so he scans, he's looking around for him, and then as he walks away, a bunch of the other clone troopers who had, I guess, came to Wrecker, and he's like, oh, Hunter's got it taken care of. He's like, no, we have to do our job, whatever. He's like, he's got it taken care of. And they're like, get out of my way. And so they run after them into the woods. So they show up at the ravine too, and don't see the kid, and I guess they assume that the kid's dead. They head back to the ship. As they're flying, I guess they're expected to head back to base, so to speak. As they're flying back, there's conversation about between Wrecker saying, like, how they did a great job and all this kind of stuff, and Tech talking about the Clone Wars and all this kind of stuff, and what had taken place, and the fact that is this where they talk about the inhibitor ships yet?
Not yet.
And then Crosshair and Hunter have a conversation. And Crosshair's like, are you sure he made it across? And he's like, yeah. Or are you sure he died? He's like, yeah, I told you, whatever. And he's like, well, usually you don't look across when someone dies, you look down. And so he's like, well, I don't like to look at, the death of someone or whatever, and walks away. And so Crosshair's like mumbling to himself, like, obviously that, he's lying, he's alive, he's not happy about it. And it's funny that, like, Hunter doesn't clue in yet. Like, it still doesn't get it yet. Like, he's still like, okay, like, whatever. They get back to base, and there are a bunch of clone troopers there. Everyone with their helmets on, right? ARC troopers, shock troopers, and they're like, oh, what are these guys doing here? And as they're heading down, they're going to be heading back to the room. And they just said, hey, hurry up, we have a meeting or something like that, right? We have a meeting, an assembly or something like that, 1500. So they're heading back to the room, and they bump into this girl in the hallway, who introduces herself as Omega.
Yeah.
And that's all we know, right? She comes out and meets with them, and then she gets pulled away
Well, I think
by.
that was after the
Was it after the assembly?
after the assembly. They go back to their room, gather their stuff, and then are told that they have to go. Um,
Training.
yeah,
I thought
go
it
to
was after the
training.
assembly they had to go training. I thought before.
Well, yeah. So they go to the assembly, and then they meet. They see Omega up with the on the top
Yeah, but that was
after the
after
Emperor.
because they first. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. But I know that they go to the room before they do the assembly because
Yeah,
they have the conversation about the chips first here, and they're talking about like the clones are so they call it the clones are programmed, and they're
yeah.
programmed to follow orders and all this kind of stuff. He says, but we're like Bad Batch, and we never had an issue following orders. And Crosshair makes a comment about like the mission not being successful because they didn't kill the Jedi or whatever, and it's all about following orders, and that's what their job is. And so, since when have you ever cared about following orders? They also talk about the fact that Echo's a reg. Like, why is he not? Big Trolley says, well, he's more droid than man, and he makes a comment about that. Yeah, and so then they head off to the assembly where they're all, the Emperor's talking about how he was scarred by the Jedi, and that they're going to change the Republic into
Pretty
the
much
Empire.
his speech in episode 3 where he talks about turning into the Galactic Empire.
Exactly, and then we see all the clones cheering, and then he says, "You still don't think everyone's programmed?" And so, like, that's again after the conversation. Like, look, they're programmed. Like, they're all cheering about this, and some clones would be like, "What's this about?" Right? So something's not right. So as they're heading back from the assembly, like something seems off, right? So they bump into the girl, whatever. Or do they bump into the troopers first? I'm trying to remember which way. Either way,
I think they bump into the girl first.
Yeah, so do they have a conversation with her?
Yeah,
and
then they go to the meal and they sit down, and then she decides to join them there as well. That starts that whole food fight,
which is awesome. She comes down, sits with them, and he's like, you shouldn't be here. You should, go sit with somewhere else, whatever. She's like, I want to be here, whatever. This is where I choose to sit. And so is it Tech? He's like, no one's ever sat here with us before. That's weird. Like, that's interesting. And so they're all having conversation. And of course, a few clones come by snarky, make comments about them. This is the sad batch or whatever. This is the defects. Another one to join your group and all this kind of stuff. And they all sneer. And so she throws food at the guy and he gets mad. And of course, Hunter defends her and Wrecker stands up. And so the guy like turns around and then Wrecker just whips a tray at him. And then he has like 5 more trays. I'm like, this is awesome. And so they just go to town. And of course, Crosshair's like, oh, geez. And so he's like just eating, trying to ignore it. But then Echo gets knocked back into his food. So he has to be pulled into it. And so they're having this huge fight all the while. Tarkin is watching because he arrives. And the reason why
Echo sees him.
Yeah, and Echo sees him. And the reason why they're there is because he's there to determine the value of the clones, if they're even going to be required or needed for their new Galactic Empire. Is it worth the money and stuff to make more of them? Which is cool. Like, we kind of get a definitive, because everyone's always been like, oh, the stormtroopers aren't clones. Like, they phased them out. They're regular people. They're signing up. And so a lot of people are like, well, there's no definitive proof of that. Well, I'm like, now they're going to show it. Like, clearly, the stormtroopers, we've seen it in Rebels, that there are people who are stolen from families. There are people who sign up. They're just random different people, and they're not clones. And this is the transition point where we're going to see why and how they get transitioned. So Tarkin, after sees this fight and sees like these 4 guys like taking on all these clones, he talks about like the Republic's going to need stronger people and all this kind of stuff, and so he wants to see them in action. And so as they leave and as they're heading to your room, they end up bumping into some shock troopers, and they're like, oh, you're needed to do a training mission or whatever. You're looking to be evaluated.
Because they're supposed to go talk to, they think they're going to get reprimanded for the fight.
Oh, no. First, Echo gets knocked out.
Yes.
And then they're in the med bay. And then with the robots that are there, he freaks out because he's being saved by a robot. And so the other troopers go in, and they're talking, and then he talks about...
Omega's there as well.
Yep. And then he talks about, like, Tarkin and who Tarkin is. And they're like, oh, he was the one that was at the battle that, you supposedly died, and this all happened to you. It's all, like...
That's right. Tarkin's he went to go save him. Yeah.
Yeah. So he doesn't like Tarkin. And he's like, he's the one that's evaluating... he's going to be the one that's evaluating us. Yeah. He doesn't like clones. It's not going to be good. And so they basically have to, after leaving the med bay, they are told they have to go do some training, a training exercise. And so they go into the battle, and so Wrecker's all like, training, oh, this is easy, give us a real challenge, whatever. And so Tarkin's there and says that he wants to, he's interested to know a little bit about the clones, which he finds out after the battle. They do a whole scenario. They get into this fight. They do very, very well. Really good. Like Crosshair, you go up there, you take out the towers, have some good strategy.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be very clone-like.
And they're all on shock
Yeah, like
blasters at
stun
this
guns
point.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Training blasters, I think they call them. And so they take out all the droids, and Wrecker's like, give me a real challenge. And so Tarkin makes a comment about, like, we want our Galactic Empire to be better than the Republic, and so we expect them to go over hardship, so use live ammo. And so, you know, Tanway or whatever his name is like, you know, we don't like to do
You're
that.
gonna damage my
Damage
facility.
the
You're
clones
gonna
and the facility. Yeah, I don't want to do that. And he's like, well, we'll make sure you're fully compensated. Like, get it done. And so he's like, okay. So then out come these droids that look very like Dark Troopers, but they're like white
I
or
think
like
they're
gray.
the first prototype
Yeah.
of the Dark Troopers, to be honest with you.
Yes, because I mean they're shooting out their hands like the Dark Troopers.
Yeah.
They're big, meaty. They're very strong. We see that as Wrecker tries to take one out, and just the guy grabs him and is like, "Oh, like this seems like again phase 1 of the Dark Troopers," and so their blasters are doing nothing to them, and so they're getting pinned down, and then more and more of these droids
blasted with the, and that's how they find out.
Wrecker gets knocked down and he's like hurt, and so then the more and more pop up around them. They're getting flanked, and they're like, "What are we supposed to do?" And so then they're like. And then Hunter just kicks in with his like extra keen sense and stuff, and he's like, "Okay," and he's giving hand signals to Tech. And Wrecker's like, "I don't understand hand signals." He's like, "We should memorize them." He's like, "You memorize them." He's like, "I did." Like that's what an idiot. And so he's like, "What we did
the same thing that exactly.
So they do this cool thing where like they're distracting. Wrecker kind of grabs one droid, pins it down. Tech dismantles one,
reprograms it.
Yeah, and then they're trying to reprogram while Hunter like is running around with his knife, cutting off the arms of some of the other ones, and they're all like just doing what they can to like destroy these things. And as they reprogram one, Tech starts riding it as it's like shooting because it's got live ammo and starts blowing up the other droids until they get down to like one left where I guess his droid, he loses control, it gets shot and he gets pinned down, and so his life is in the balance. So they're trying to figure out what they can do. So Hunter throws a knife, it gets stuck in the arm, it doesn't do anything, and so Crosshair is I guess looks at Hunter's position, looks at where the droid is, and says, "Hunter, knife!" And Hunter whips the knife out. He just aims, shoots it with his training
I think
ammo.
Wrecker threw the knife.
Was it Wrecker?
I think so, because Hunter already threw his knife, so he told Wrecker to throw his
I thought it was
knife up, and Crosshair just shoots it right into
with like an electrical current to like shut him down. I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
It was so cool.
And so Tarkin immediately like talks about it during the battle. Like these aren't like traditional like clone strategies. And it's like, oh, the Bad Batch aren't like traditional clones. They do their own thing. They improvise. And then he likes it. He's like happy about that because that's what he wants in his army. He doesn't want people who just do cookie cutter plans. He wants them to be able to improvise, which is why he doesn't want clones in the first place. He wants to have humans and other people who can, you know, be trained and think on their feet and be cunning, right? So he's very happy at their progress. He then asks them about like what makes them so special, and so they talk about they talk about them being defective, enhanced ability clones or something. He says, "How many enhanced clones do you have?" And they say only 5 total.
5.
And so we're like, "Oh, okay, that's the Bad Batch, right?"
Yeah.
So
doesn't even click in.
Yeah. So he's like all interested and stuff like that, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
They go off. Does he have a conversation? Yeah. Then he has a conversation with them. Right? Telling them about a mission he wants them. Oh, no.
Yeah, because they were angry. They went back to their barracks and they were angry about live fire. And then all of a sudden, Tarkin came in.
Yes.
And started talking to them.
Yes, but before that, he asked them, he says, like, I heard that, like, they don't take good orders or they disobey orders. And he says, yeah, but they've never failed the mission. Like, it's never affected them on their missions. And so Tarkin's like, well, did they obey Order 66? And he says, well, the Jedi Master and the Padawan didn't come back alive, so I guess so. And he says, well, according to the reports, the Padawan is still alive out there, or something like that. Or someone filed a report that he survived.
Filed by their own teammate.
Yeah, that he survived. So I'm assuming that's Crosshair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he says, like, he still survived. So he says, well, we'll test their loyalty or something like that. And that's why he decides to go give them a mission, to send them on a special mission. And so they're all like, yeah, sure, whatever you want us to do.
Take down insurgents, right?
That's
Is that
right.
what their mission was?
Yep, insurgents.
On Alderaan, right?
Was it Alderaan? I thought it was a different planet.
I thought it was Alderaan, but I could be wrong.
Either way, they head out. They go down to this planet. They have this plan to go. And they arrive, and they're all, you know, doing their thing, and then they come
all stealthy.
And they come upon the area, and they see all the people. And so they're like, none of these people look like
Yeah, there's
soldiers or
like old
insurgents.
ladies
Yeah,
and
I was expecting
children,
droids. Like, what is going
droids.
on
Yeah,
here? And so he's like, Crosshair's like, just give the. It doesn't matter. We're here for the mission. Give the order, and we'll do it. And he's like, no, stand down. We're gonna talk or figure this out, whatever, right? And so they go, they talk, and we find out that the leader of this group is Saw Gerrera, a younger version, which
so
is great. And they got, I think it's a sound alike. I don't think it was him. I think it was a sound
no,
alike
yeah.
to try to get it to sound like a Forrest Whitaker, but great moment there. Had the conversation. He's
Another
like, look around.
throwback.
Like, this empire that you're joining, like, this is different. Like you said, the war's over, but this is not like the freedom. This is not what we wanted. Like, look around. Are we insurgents? Is this the kind of people you want to go on, like work under or whatever? And so Hunter's like thinking about it, and so they head off. And obviously Hunter lets them go because he's like, I'm not going to kill innocents. There must be something wrong. And then he tells the clones to stop. He says he thinks they're being followed, right? He feels like something's wrong. And then we see off in the distance there's a probe droid that's watching everything happen. And so as they're heading back to the ship, they're Crosshair and him are having this altercation about him not following orders, and that he should be stepping down. He's messed up on calories, messing up here. He's making all these bad decisions. And then Hunter kind of looks at him and then throws, I guess it's his knife, right? Or did he shoot?
I think he shoots. Yeah, he shoots it beside Crosshair's head.
Yeah, and so Crosshair's like thinking he's going to get shot, and then he turns around and sees that he destroyed a probe droid and says, oh, they're spying on us. What's going on? And then Crosshair makes a comment about like, whether it's Empire or the Republic, like what's the difference? As long as we follow orders, doesn't matter if they're spying on us or something like that. Like he's pretty much cool with what's going on. And Hunter knows something's off with him, but he's not sure what it is. And so they head back.
Because this is where they realize that they said that there's 5, but Echo's not genetically.
Do they mention it now, or do they mention it on the? Do they mention it on the ship, or do they mention it when they get back? I don't remember.
They mention it before they get on the ship because this is the only reason why they're going back is to get the Omega.
That's
essentially
right.
Because she's the other one. So they're like, we can't leave her behind. And Crosshair's all mad because they're making another mistake for a child, and
that's right. And so he says there were 5. He says they said there were 5, and he says, yeah, that's 5 of us. He goes, no, technically Echo was a reg. He was reprogrammed himself as a droid, but he's not a thing. Omega's the 5th. And I was like, ooh, the realization, like, da-da-da. Because I was like, when we first met her, I was like, she looks familiar. She kind of looks like a young boy. And then they're like, oh, it's a girl. I'm like, it's a girl. Why does she look like a boy? It's because she kind of had that face of the clones. I just didn't really pick it up right away. They did a good job of kind of making her look like a clone, but kind of still making her look unique. So the mystery is like, oh, there's another special clone out there that is enhanced. We don't know what her enhancement is. I can only imagine what it is. And I think that's one of the big mysteries we're going to find out during the season. And so she wants to be part of them because they mentioned her like going home to her parents or something. And she's like, parents, she assumes that they know, but they don't know anything about her. And she drops hints throughout the episode that she is like a clone and she doesn't have anybody. And so it's a really cool realization at that point. And so Hunter's like, we're going back for her. And so, so they head back. And of course they're ambushed.
Yeah.
Right. And so and then they're, Tarkin appears, it's act of treason, for not obeying the orders, whatever. So they head off into the brig. And as they're thrown into jail, Omega's already there. Because she was taken to jail initially, right?
That's right.
So they're all in
jail. She was found in their barracks as well. And that's how they captured her.
That's right. So she's in jail. They're all in jail. And they're trying to figure out a way to get out. And so Tech discovers a plan, a special part in the wall they can break out. Because it was
first they take Crosshair out because Omega has a conversation with Crosshair saying, I know what you're going through. It's not your fault. You can't control it. Right. I know what you're going to do. Don't do it, kind of thing.
Which is her hint. I think that's her hint and her enhancement. And so before we finish off the episode, what do you think? What do you think her enhancement is? Like, what do you feel? So
I think she is force sensitive, to be honest. I think she's the first force sensitive.
But I don't think they could program that into a clone. So it makes me wonder, like, how that works. Because
maybe like Palpatine was like trying to get them to do some work on so he could find a way to clone himself. So he's testing on other clones to try and get. So he wants his clone to be force sensitive. I think in the novelization of the Rise of Skywalker, it like failed a lot where the clones couldn't get it, but I'm not sure. So that's my feeling. Like this was like one of the first tests, and it was successful, but they didn't tell the Empire because they were trying to cut off the clone thing. So maybe it would
Yes,
have been good for Palpatine, but
which is possible, and because we know that when he's trying to do it, they have to get. Oh, well, I don't want to spoil Mandalorian because we're not. People might be watching this not watching Mandalorian, but we know that there's a key element for Mandalorian. We find out that's being used for that, right? So
that's right.
I think that you're right. I do think it's definitely premonition, but I also think it also could be something to do with like emotions, like connecting to the person on an emotional level. Like she can either read their thoughts or know what they're feeling, and it's that sort of thing because it's she knows what he's feeling. She knows he has no control. She kind of knows what's going on without him saying anything. Well, that could be a force thing. It could also just be some telekinetic, telepathic, emotional connection type thing, right? Like empath, I think is what they call it. So we'll find out where they go from here. But
Yeah,
it's interesting because even the way she talks to different clones, it's like she knows how to talk to everyone without like making them angry at her or like upset at her. You know what I mean? Like she has this way about her. So I
yeah,
think that it might be something along those lines. So either she's flat out like force, or it's just she's got some empath. She's got some like emotional
yeah.
control or connection to
Powers.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It could be. I'm very interested to see what what her ability is. To be honest.
Yeah. And so they take Crosshair out, they do a scan on him, and they notice that he has the chip in there, and Tarkin makes a comment that like he tried to obey the mission. He was like, cause he saw everything that was going on, and so
Yeah,
he says, "Well, the chip is in there, but because of the defects and whatever to his brain, his cranial, whatever they called it, it's not working like
it's
as
weaker.
it's weaker.
Yeah,
And so, is there any way we can like enhance it or whatever, like increase the potency of it? So they said, yeah. So they just like crank it up, and so he's like in pain, whatever. But he's basically like a full on clone trooper now. Like they boosted up to where it's supposed to be, and
yeah,
so we don't really see him yet. We go back to the jail cell. They're trying to figure out a way. Tech finds an area on how to get out. He asks Wrecker to punch through this specific spot to open up a panel. Omega has to go through to sneak out to open up the ray shields, which she does. And
yeah.
they fight and kind of escape to the hangar, which is where all the
Hanger.
belongings were taken to. And
Yeah,
so when they get there, they're sifting through trying to find their stuff. And Wrecker's looking for something very specific, and it's funny because Omega finds it. It's like the stuff here, whatever, right?
yeah,
So they're fighting whatever. Some troopers. The door opens. Some clones appear, and I guess leading them in all black is Crosshair, and like new helmet, looks like a TIE fighter helmet, kind of like just different, right? Like a TIE Special Forces kind of guy. So he's there, and he basically tells them like they gotta surrender, like there's no place to go, blah blah blah. Him and Hunter have an exchange. Then the battle ensues. I think the first one on the ship is Tech, right? Who's trying to get like the ship
the
going,
ship
or,
going.
or is it Echo?
Yeah. No, I think I'm pretty sure it's Tech.
Yeah. So they're there and they're trying to make an escape, and so they're fighting. Is it Wrecker that gets knocked down again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Crosshair's using this like heat vision thing to see where Hunter and everyone is, and Omega's there, and he's like, "Oh, you have to go, run to the
Say
ship,
low.
whatever,
Yeah.
all that stuff." And so Hunter's aware of what's going to happen, and so she runs away. He runs to go try to get Wrecker, and she basically, instead of going to the ship, sees a gun, doubles back and grabs the gun, and it's a good thing she does because Crosshair's about to shoot him, and she shoots Crosshair. And I'm like, without any
The
training,
gun right out of his hand.
yeah, she clearly has the pre-programmed like clone training in her to a certain extent, I guess, to just know how to fire a weapon, and she did a pretty darn good job in like not necessarily hitting him, but getting pretty close to startle him to like make him miss or whatever, right? So really cool moment. They all get on board and escape, and so that's the end of that episode, right? There's nothing else that
Yeah, pretty
happens
much.
after
She
that?
goes to the front of the cockpit, and this is the first time she's ever been anywhere, so she's very amazed by the galaxy. And then Hunter tells her to sit down because you're not going to want to miss this. And they put in
That's
some
right.
coordinates about someone they know that they'll go visit and know how to stay off the grid. And so then they go into light speed. She's amazed, and then they cut to black.
Cut to black. So it
The
was
credits.
a great first episode. Awesome moments. Do you want to just dive right into the second before we kind of
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
cut and run. We pick up. They are arriving at a
right where
planet.
they are.
Yep,
Yeah.
Celicor is a planet that they're going to. They're basically on the looks for an old clone trooper, a defector, and we find out. Chris, you can mention this. Is from we see him first in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, so Rex is injured in one of the episodes of Clone Wars on this planet, and he runs into this family, and it ends up being a clone trooper who's deserted, started his own family, has two children,
And Rex
married to
almost wants to
a
take him in,
Twilight.
right? The first
Yeah,
inclination
so
was
it's like
Rex is upset and
first
wants.
they're healing him, and then once he finds out he's a defect, he wants to try and bring him in and try and understand why he defected and cut. Is like, I'm fighting a war that's not mine. Why am I going to die for this? I decided I wanted to start my own family, and so he did, which was great. So and his name was Cut. So Cut and Run is pretty fitting name for that. That is
Yes.
very creative
Yeah.
in that way. And so when they landed, I was watching with my son, and I'm like, oh, I wonder who's going to be, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's Rex. Because they're as they landed, they're like, oh yeah, this person's on the run. He's a deserter, and he knows how to stay off the grid and so on.
I had a
Um,
thought for some reason that it was Maul. For some
oh
reason, just because
yeah,
at Clone Wars and how he was like, while he was leading like
got
the
away.
Mandos
Yeah,
and stuff, he still like he was even telling Ahsoka like there's something wrong, we have to stop. Well, I don't want to get into the details of that, but basically like he had his own mission and he didn't seem like he was completely bad. He had his own objective, and so maybe perhaps Bad Batch had come in contact with him. So I thought maybe we might see an appearance of Maul because this wasn't Tatooine. It could be Celicor. It's a different planet. Maybe he's
yeah.
in hiding. So I was thinking, oh, are we going to see like this like a surprise at a left field person? But no, it ended up being Cut. Like you said, it was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
so after I was like Rex, I was like, oh wait, maybe it's that deserter that had the family. I don't know why I thought of that, but the I guess the surroundings kind of reminded me of that
But weren't they in the
episode.
desert though? In that Clone Wars, wasn't it like more in a desert planet?
I think it was like sandy, but I
Because here it
think there
looked
was
a
still
lot
some plants,
more.
and there was a farmer. I
Yeah,
think he was a farmer, but the hut looked smaller in the Clone Wars, so maybe they extended it or whatever it was. I just thought the house was a bit smaller, but it was many years, I guess, afterwards.
yeah.
But yeah, so it was so cool to see them bring back someone from the Clone Wars and an episode and those characters to see where they are. And the Bad Batch obviously has visited them a few times, and
I think the Bad
they're
Batch
very
are going
well
to bump
known.
into Rex and Wolf and
Rex,
those
I hope
guys
so.
because
I
then
hope so.
because we know when we see them again in the future, it'd be cool to be like,
Yeah,
well, how do they get there? And so maybe the Bad Batch will bump into them and they decide to go off on their own as well, right?
that would be so cool.
Absolutely. So I can't wait to see kind of how the Bad Batch connects the ties between all this stuff, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, so
but
they meet up. Sorry, go ahead.
so yeah, like in this episode, it's a lot about showing how it changes from Republic to Empire and how quickly they changed it. The currency is not good anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much trying to register everyone so that they can keep track of everyone and really control it. Which is funny because later on in the episode, I think it's Tech saying, "Oh no," Echo was saying all the clones wanted names, and now everyone's getting numbers instead. So it's all weird, and Tech is impressed by it because he's like, "This is, an easy way for them to convert everyone and track everyone
Yeah.
across the galaxy."
Which they do because they get prisoners, they have numbers, then or what sector, what planet this person's in, and where they're going, and all
Yeah,
this kind of stuff.
chain
And
codes. It's all
yes,
chain codes, which we see in Mandalorian and other episodes where people talk about chain codes and tracking chain codes for bounties and stuff like that. So
yeah. So it's pretty cool how they do that. Most of the clones that we see from here on out are black and white. They're still wearing clone outfits. They're not wearing stormtrooper helmets, as obviously they're still clones. But
yeah,
we don't see that many colorful ones. The majority of the ones that we see are black and white.
yeah,
So it's pretty interesting that we kind of see that motif going forward. We see them talk about the fact that Cut and Sue have to leave because they
yeah.
see a
They'd run
transport
into
come.
Rex. Rex had actually come before then, and they said that he was there a day or two before. So the Bad Batch obviously know Rex from
Yes.
the Clone Wars and working with him, and were interested to talk to him again, but he'd already made his way through and said that there's a storm coming and a bunch of the Empire is coming that way as well.
Yep, and they're impounding ships, and they notice that, and so he says it was getting harder and harder for us to get off. So him and Hunter kind of go into town to try to get passage, a secure passage off a shuttle, and then they find out that they are requiring chain codes to get registered, and they're impounding all sorts of ships, so no one's going to be able to leave. And then he realizes that he can't qualify for one because they're going to know he's a defector, and he's going to get in trouble. So he says they need to find a way to get off this planet. So Hunter speaks to Tech and stuff and says, like, is there any way that you can replicate them? Is there any way that we can, you can make them? And he says, yeah, I'm sure I can figure that out. We'd have to like get some stuff, but we could probably do that. And so, so they go back and they're trying to figure out the plan. And so the kids are playing outside. Ball goes over a fence. The kids are like, oh, we'll get that tomorrow. Like, we're not going to go get that now. And so Omega doesn't know why that they're afraid to go. So she kind of goes to the fence to get the ball. And we find out there's a Nexu there ready to attack. And so, the kids call the parents. They come out to save her life. And Hunter runs out, man, and just faces it, knife to the face, and just like, I'm taking you on. And saves her life, and Hunter just starts yelling at her, what are you doing? I want you to know that's not dangerous. You shouldn't have done that. And so kind of cuts in and literally cuts in and is like,
the father,
he's like,
the father,
he's like, she's not a soldier. Like, you need to understand, like, she's a kid, and you got to treat her as such. And he even tells him before that's really hard. Like, being a parent is harder than being a soldier. Like, it's,
you think war's hard, you wait till raising kids.
Yeah, you got to forget everything we all know. And so they're trying to figure out what to do, and he tells Hunter the best thing to do is like give up being a soldier and just go live your life somewhere, and just that's the best way to like move on. Like, that's the only way forward that cut sees. And so he says that him and his family got to get out. And so because Tech and them are going to come up with an idea, they're on the ship. Omega's on the ship because she's a little upset at what happened. And so Hunter and them are talking. He says, where's Omega? Oh, she decided to stay on the ship. And so then Tech and Echo are having conversations back and forth about what they need. And they said, we need this stuff. It's going to be located in their barracks or whatever. It's going to be heavily guarded. And they're like, how are we going to get in there? And then he says, oh, we can have access to the impound lot. And so they both get the idea of calling their ship in, having them impound their ship, and they'll hide in their ship, and then they'll be in the yard and steal it. And so they go tell Hunter. He's like, you did what? So he comes out and sees them being impounded. And he's like, I can't believe you did this, Tech. And he's like, don't worry, we got it under control. He says, except that Omega's on the ship. And they're like, oh, what? And she's like,
hey, she turns, I think it's a great plan.
Yeah, I heard what you did. Time. So it's very, very funny moments, a lot of levity and stuff like that. And so they have got to do this covert operation. They tell Omega to kind of stay in the ship. Echo is the one who has to kind of get out, break into the thing, steal the chips, whatever. Scomp Link in because he's got the hand.
That's right. I think it's so cool that they gave him that hand and that he has that ability. Like, and it really, he's a droid part of the team. Essentially, he's all those characters, and he's very useful as part of the team. So he has his own skill set. So he's a true part of the team, which is an asset, which is great.
Yeah, like Tech is very, very smart, but Tech is like, yeah, I can do this, I can encrypt this, but I can't hack a Scomp Link without tools. Well, Echo can. He is that droid, so like it's a great.
It's programmed right into him because he's half more mechanical than man, as they say, and he has that ability. So very cool. So
he steals the stuff. He's making his way back to the ship, and obviously Tech's trying to photocopy it and make copies of it. They all decide to go meet them at the line. Right, Hunter and all them are heading towards, and they've got to sneak these cards out. Excuse me. They got to sneak these cards out. And so then they say there's this huge platoon of clones that show up. And they're like, there's no way we're going to be able to get through that. And so Omega grabs the discs and heads out of the ship to, like, I guess, do her part, being like a small person. And so they're like, okay, we're going to have to figure out a way to do this. And so they turn around and they're like, where's Omega? And then Tech's like, oh, she's already like on her way. Like she's going. So tells that to Hunter and so he's not very happy about it, but the girl says, the mother, Sue, says, kids will always find themselves getting into danger. It's our job to protect them. Like, that's our job as parents, right?
Yeah. So he sends Wrecker to go help.
So she's out there, and then, of course, Echo gets sent out to remove the boot that's holding down the ship. So he's hacking in there, trying to take it out, and of course, Tech's like, you're taking so long, what's going on? And so then, at this point, I guess one of the clones see that he's not supposed to be there. Tech takes him out, and then some shooting starts. And so because of this, a bunch of the clones run over. That gives what's-her-face, Omega, a chance to kind of get through. And then, obviously, she gets spotted. Wrecker
she gets spotted by a clone trooper. And
Wrecker
then
takes him out.
Wrecker comes and
No, the
takes him out.
droid. She gets spotted by the droid.
That's
Wrecker
right.
knocks the droid out. It's an R2 unit. Knocks it
Yeah.
out, and then she runs away towards to get the cards, and then he has to take on some clone troopers who come after him looking for his chain code. So they're all fighting, and so when she gets there, and of course Cut is all like scared, like, oh, they're coming, asking us for stuff.
Wrong. We gotta turn around.
Go. I can't afford to like get my kids caught. And so she shows up, gives the cards. She goes, we have 5. I don't know why you have 5 for. And so, they're all upset. The hunter didn't tell that he had asked them if they could take her off his hands, because they could give her a life, a family. And he
better life, safer life. That's right. Yeah.
And so he tells her that it's better for her to go with them. And so, she basically goes, not happily, with them onto the ship. While Hunter runs back,
to join the other crew and help them out and take out some more clones and stuff.
Because they're all getting pinned down, and so they're making comments at Echo like, "Can you hurry up out there? It's taking so long." And so a Wrecker just comes and just rips it off. Hunter shows up, drop kicks some guys and takes some guys out. It's really awesome. Grabs the gun, like just so cool. As they're fighting to leave, and then as they're about to get on, they see that Omega is there.
Omega, yeah.
And they're like, oh crap! So
she gets grabbed by a trooper when she So Hunter jumps out and like has that dad mentality of like saving his child, and he always had that connection because he has that extra sense, and he felt it when during the presentation from Palpatine, he was looking at the child, knowing that there's something off or he couldn't figure it out.
Someone's watching him
when they're meeting and things like
perception, I think is what they said it. Enhanced senses and perception. So he can tell someone's watching him or something's weird feeling. So he saves her.
So they get on the ship. He saved her. Yeah.
Yep. And so they get out of there. And so they're gone. Cut now. They take off. Everyone's safe. And as they're heading off, they're having a conversation on the ship, and she says, I didn't want to go with them. This is where I want to be. And she goes, I know I made a mistake. I know I have a lot to learn, but, this is where I want to be. This is where I feel like I belong. And so he says, well, this is where you want to be, and this is where you're going to stay. And so they have
I have a lot to learn as well. Yeah, because she's like, I have a lot to learn and stuff. And he's like, I have a lot to learn too. And, glad you're here kind of thing. So it's not going to be like he's trying to get rid of her now. Now she's like a part of the team, and they're going to work with her somehow to teach her and get her ready and so on.
Yeah, so it was great, and so that's how they end this particular episode. They're off to who knows where, right? They didn't state where their plan was. They're off.
No, they didn't say where.
But they're all together, and they got cut out, and I guess they got advice, right? Because they wanted to figure out where to go, how to stay low, and he's like, give up being a soldier, like find your own way, live your own life, and so they're basically trying to find a place where they can figure out what to do next. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So it was a very fun episode. We got to get more character development of Hunter and him having a connection to Omega, a father-daughter kind of connection, very much like Mandalorian and the Child. We get to see him realizing that there's more to life than being a soldier and that he wants more for himself. He obviously doesn't believe in the Empire, and he does feel a little bit like he wants to get involved in the cause, because when Saw Gerrera offers it to him, he hesitates, but you can kind of feel like he wants to join the cause, like he knows that that's the right thing to do. So we'll see if he ends up joining down the road. But great second episode. So just to kind of go through everything, lots of Easter eggs, lots of surprises, lots of stuff kind of thrown in there. What did you want to jump into?
I mean, we covered a lot, but I think it's just so great how they're continuing the Clone Wars with the Bad Batch. It's a fresh start to Clone Wars essentially with these 5 special, they're not the typical clones. They all have great abilities. They all have great personalities. There's some comedy in it. There's, a lot of action. So I love all the characters. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with Crosshair, because obviously, they're going to want to try and get him back, and they're figuring out the chip, because even Omega says, oh yeah, all the clones were, the inhibitor chips. So they're learning more and more about that. So maybe they'll find a way, with Tech or someone to, zap it out, and maybe Crosshair will join them, or we'll see. Because they're going to, Crosshair's going to be tracking them, obviously, and wanting to take them out or bring them in or whatever, probably take them out. So that'll be great, finding out more about Omega, and, because they did say all the, what's that planet, where the clones are made?
Oh, Camino.
They make clones for a reason. So, Cut says, you guys were all made for a reason. What's her reason? So it's interested to see what what she's all about, what her special ability is, or her enhancement
And we're gonna find
is.
that out for sure.
Yeah, which is great. I think it's very interesting. It brings a new spin onto the Star Wars as well. It's not it's kind of similar with clones, but it's all new, different type of clones. They're not following orders and Order 66. They've always been different and enhanced. So very cool that way. So lots to look forward to in this series, and I think it's going to be very, very entertaining
Yeah,
and true Star Wars experience.
yeah, I agree. I thought it was well done. I love seeing Caleb Doom get to see that moment.
Yes,
A nice little
yes,
flash forward to Rebels. We get to see um, the Nexu call back to Attack of the Clones. We get to see Cut, which is from the Clone Wars themselves. We get to see just
Sal Carrera,
yeah, Saw Gerrera, just a lot of the
Sal
different
Carrera.
things. And then we see like hints of the Empire. We see the probe droid pop up. We see the clones are wearing more black and white. They act like stormtroopers. I remember Tech makes a comment like, Trooper, where's your call center? I was like, move it out of my way. And he's like, it'll seem the same to me. They seem very
Yeah,
stormtrooper-like already, even though, again, we're going to see Tarkin, his plan is to phase them out and get recruits because it's going to be cheaper. To like,
that's
oh yeah,
right.
join the Empire. We'll give you room and board, and then not have to pay them or pay to produce them, which is
Death
a lot
Stars
less
are
money.
expensive.
Yep, and then eventually stealing kids and do whatever they need to get their armies, right? So
Yeah, training them young, brainwashing them
yeah,
for sure.
so it's an interesting transition. I can't wait to see more of that kind of take place as they kind of
Yeah,
get
because I've
forward.
always wanted to see more about in between episode 3 and 4. What happens, some characters, Rex, even Commander Cody, what happened to him, Wolf, all those people. I want to see what happens. I want to see how they make the Bad Batch make sense for the future. Like, will they bring them up in something else? Because obviously we haven't seen them in past movies or anything like that. But will they bring them up later in different episodes or different things where they come up in the future? It'll
That's a
be
good
interesting.
question. That's a good question. I mean, I think that I don't think they all will make it. I think we might lose one or two of them at some point towards the end of the series, however many seasons they decide to make this. But I can see them settling down where like Hunter and Omega or whoever, like they settle down and kind of have their own life. When some of them survive, some don't. Maybe Wrecker doesn't make it. Whatever, he saves them to get them out or
Yeah,
whatever. I think that we will see an end where some of them are alive, but they're kind of living their life secluded somewhere. So that's why you don't really see them. And it kind of gives you the hope that they could show up, but they don't have to kill everyone off like they did in Rogue One, right? They can kind of keep it open ended,
yeah,
which is nice. I think that we're gonna see more, like I said, of the Empire transition. I thought that a lot of the connections to what they're doing is really, really cool. I love how
yeah,
they're dropping the breadcrumbs of like where we're going, because we kind of know where the end goal is, but they're
yeah.
kind of
How they get there?
yeah, and to be honest with you, I think Cody is one of is not like he's got the chip in him, and he shot Kenobi.
Yeah,
He's or shot at
he's
Kenobi.
100%
He's
like
100%
cross,
reg,
like,
and
yeah,
no one got the chip out of him. Rex was only saved because Ahsoka saved him. Fives,
passed out
found the secret
before.
out, saved
Yeah,
himself. Took the chip out of himself, tried to tell people, and got killed for it. So yeah, I don't think other than Rex and I guess Wolf and Gregor, which I guess Rex took out their chip or whatever.
yeah.
Figured
I
it
like
out.
to know how they maybe they followed Order 66 and then later on got turned, or more about Rex in between, from what happened from Clone Wars and the Clone Wars to where he is later on in Rebels, things like that. I like to see that middle part kind of filled in.
I wonder if there's going to be a confrontation where they're going to send Crosshair out to hunt them down, and they're going to get into altercation. They're going to capture Crosshair, and after meeting with Rex, because I think they're going to come in contact with Rex during the season, and Rex is going to explain about the chip and that it can be removed, it can be stopped, whatever. And so they're going to come up with a plan to like capture Crosshair to free him.
Yeah,
That's the end goal, is that they're going to try to get him back on his team, because once you remove the chip, he's probably going to want to go with him, right? Or feel bad
yeah.
at what he did and go
He's
off on
going
his
to
own.
be back part of the team
I would hope
because
so,
they know that
right?
he's not controlling it, right? Like he's not him.
Yeah, so that's their goal. They're going to try to save him, and at the same time, I think after they cross paths with Rex and find this out, he's going to go off to him, Wolf and Gregor or whatever, maybe he already saved them, are going to like, okay, we're going to go live our lives, you guys go live your lives. And it's another, it's them meeting more clones that are deciding to give up the soldier and living their lives. So maybe that's where they're going to get the idea of like kind of what to do. So I think there definitely will be an altercation to give us that moment of like why the clones are out there and what happened. Maybe they got the Bad Batch's help to commandeer that big ATTE thing. So it'll be cool. But I think that's the only thing I can predict that's going to happen. And obviously with Omega, she's going to have an important role. And maybe, who knows, maybe she will have to leave him and find someone to train her. Maybe she will be force sensitive. Maybe she will be going off to become a Jedi somewhere if she is force sensitive. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see kind of where we end up, but it's going to be an interesting situation there.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be nice. It's I've been craving some Star Wars stuff, some new Star Wars stuff, and this is really hitting the spot for me. So it'll be great.
Yeah. So overall, the show so far is definitely recommend, right? Is that your thoughts?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I know I had a friend who's not as big, like he's big into Star Wars, but not as, they haven't watched Clone Wars all the way through and they don't know about Rebels and things like that. And he was asking, like, do I need to, watch the last season of Clone Wars to know what it's all about? But, they make it easy enough that the casual fan can still watch this and enjoy it and still catch up and find out, the middle parts and things that they need.
Right, but at the same time, if you are watching this as the first cartoon show and you haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels, this will spoil some of that, because then if you do go back and watch Rebels, then you're like, oh, Kanan Jarrus, my master, like, oh wait, that's and so it kind of spoils some of those moments in Rebels when you see people show up, or in Clone Wars, you're like, oh, this person was in Clone Wars, or this person survived, or something happened. If they call back to Clone Wars in such a way, then it kind of spoils some of those moments, but. Either way, yeah, they do make it so that it starts off, we're at the end of the Clone Wars, this is what's going on, this is where we're at. Oh yeah, it looks like Kenobi's engaging Grievous. So they make comments, and the parts that they call out are parts from the movie. Not so much
which is what
shows,
most people watch.
That's what most people watch, so they kind of know where this is taking place. That's the point of it. But man, I would love, I mean, I guess it's not physically possible because Mandalorian takes place after episode 6, but it'd be really cool if there were some sort of connections between this and some of the live action shows, and somehow there's like dropping breadcrumbs. They visit a planet, maybe we'll see a former drop trooper, Cara Dune, but I guess she was a rebel. This is still before the rebels, right? They're just insurgents right now, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if we cross paths with anybody from Mandalorian or one of the other shows, but I'm thinking that there will be something going on, maybe even a Kenobi appearance. We'll have to wait and see.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. I think it's a great show so far. Cannot wait to watch the last 10 episodes of this particular show. I think it's 12 episodes, right? Or is it 16? I think it's 12.
I think it's, yeah, I want to say 14, but I could be wrong. But
yeah, well, the last bunch of episodes, we're really excited to see that. Those are our thoughts on the episodes as a whole. Lots of callbacks, lots of little funny trinkets and things kind of going on. But let us know what you thought. If you watched the show, drop a comment below. We love to hear from you guys and letting us discuss the parts that you liked or didn't like and what your speculation is for the show going forward. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and as always, friends, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.